Vigilante. He is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Chef, and they're going to be talking about meal kits meets IoT. Please welcome our next panel to the stage.
Well, hey,
hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chef,
Chef.
Tell us what Chef is so people have some understanding, we have some context. What does Chef do?
So Chef plays in the meal kit space. We kind of call ourselves the anti-subscription meal kit platform. Got our start. Our CEO was actually a Blue Apron customer. Didn't like that he couldn't reorder something or skip a week, and said, I want a platform where I can actually order what I want when I want. So we have 2,000 recipes. You can order what you want when you want. There's no subscription whatsoever. You can opt into a meal plan if you'd like, but because of this vast library of ingredients and recipes, we're able to do custom kits in a partnership format for anyone who'd ever want to sell a meal kit to a consumer.
So talk about this pitch we just heard Chris talk about, meal kits meets IoT. Now you normally don't hear that combination of IoT and meal kits, so talk about what that means.
Right, I actually had a friend text me this morning asking what on earth that meant, a connected meal kit. But the way I kind of frame it as is that we can create a meal plan for any sort of connected device. Vitamix, a very good example. We're currently building a series of, call it 30 meals for Vitamix that'll be shoppable on the Vitamix platform. Consumer goes on, orders a meal or 10, and it'll show up in a box on their doorstep, ready to be created in their Vitamix. We're also partnered with Init, Matteo here, as a partner, and building shoppable recipes that'll live on the Init app and will show up in an Init box to the consumer.
So, shoppable recipes is a trend we've been writing about, and recipes are becoming interesting. You can figure out what food you have in the refrigerator and create a recipe out of that. But also, it sounds like we can maybe customize and create and have something shipped to us and then cook it. So talk about, you're plugging into the Init ecosystem, you're plugging into Vitamix, which maybe that's more kind of soup-based type of things. Talk about how you're tailoring it for the different IoT and connected appliance manufacturers, how that process is working.
Yeah, again, it's kind of goes through our, call it two to 3 months of onboarding to get recipes up and into our system and shoppable, if you will, and as customizable as you'd ever want. We're working with a drug company right now that has a very specific drug that only works with a very specific diet for their cancer patients, and these are people who aren't necessarily in a state where they can go grocery shopping, but need to eat a very specific way for the drug to work. We're building a very customized, call it 25 meal plan for that company, so that their patients can tap into our meal kits, and whether they have a caretaker or are cooking themselves, they need very low fiber, high starchy meals, not what you'd really expect from a typical kind of meal kit platform that might skew a little bit healthier. So again, there's kind of unlimited in what we can customize.
So let's step back and look at the broader meal kit ecosystem, right? So everyone's familiar with Blue Apron and some of the Plateds of the world. What I would call subscription mass market ones. You have your set. With Blue Apron, it's very familiar to most of us who've tried it. You sign up and you only have a selection of 4. You guys are interesting in that you're plugging into various different brands, like Init. It sounds like Vitamix, and I'm really fascinated by this cancer patient one where you're customizing around health needs. So it's in a way it's personalization meets meal kits. And I'm cutting out there. Hello. Personalization meets meal kits. Is that? I mean, when you talk about how you pitch it, are you kind of a white label meal kit company that meets different brands where they are? And talk a little bit about your approach versus other meal kit companies.
Yeah, it's a different story depending on the partner, to be completely frank. And the thesis being, meal kits have gone from 0 to 5 billion globally in 4 short years. Blue Apron played at HelloFresh, building the category for us, but all with the same model, very high customer acquisition costs, relatively high attrition rate. Most people don't hang out for longer than 6 months. Something that people like, but don't necessarily like being tied to every week. And so we've built a back end with, call it 4,000 ingredients, whereas I've been to Blue Apron's warehouse. They can handle about 50 to 100 ingredients at any given time in very large volumes, but it doesn't allow for much customization. Whereas we have 4,000, our next gen facilities will have 10,000 individual SKUs, which allows for the complete customization. We are a white label partner for some brands, like Hungry Root, for example. We do the back end for it. The consumer never knows that Chef is even involved. On the flip side, we also just launched our own branded kits in Costco and Target, which will be rolling out nationally over the next 3 months, beating Costco expectations by 3 to 4x in certain regions. The top selling SKU in Costco in all of Texas right now, which is neat. So that's very much a branded play, but could very well be a licensed play as well. We're talking to other brands to license our packaging effectively.
And regarding the Chef branded, we were talking earlier, and you talked about how you are using data to know and set up specific meal kits targeted at like maybe Atlanta versus Texas. So what type of data feeds are you using to do customized meal kits for specific geographies?
So that's the beauty of our platform. We are the only non-subscription meal kit platform. So our e-commerce data is very rich in terms of what people are choosing to order as opposed to what people are receiving. Blue Apron doesn't, their data is just different in that people don't have a lot of optionality. Whereas we know in North Carolina, for example, that people tend to like spicier, creamier products from our e-commerce side. So our top selling SKU in Food Lion down there in store is a spicy Cajun pasta dish. And we, built in a little bit of an edge because we knew in that region we were already selling that online. Well, why not throw it into the stores? Whereas Texas, the maple crusted steak and potatoes does better than the Cajun pasta, for example.
You talked about 10,000 SKUs. That's a phenomenal number within a one facility. It seems like kind of like that's
4 facilities.
4 facilities. Yeah. That's still super hyper personalized or hyper. Yeah. So talk about how you guys get to do that versus like a Blue Apron. A little more detail on how you guys can go to such granular SKU level manufacturing of meal kits.
It's there's a lot of automation involved. It's a lot of technology that's actually been around for 15, 20 years that's been applied to different pieces of the food ecosystem. We're the first to do it all under one roof. It is capital intensive. We're very fortunate to have 2 fantastic capital partners in Campbell Soup and Smithfield Foods that together invested close to $50 million last year into Chef. And it's a combination of being very intelligent with data and knowing who's going to want what when, and leveraging that with automation to keep kind of margins and cost in check. I'd say we're probably 2 years away from it being a full reality, but it's what we're building towards.
Now, I do want to go to questions if there are questions, so feel free to raise your hands. Go ahead. So I'll repeat the question so people can. So what? Yes. Now that they're going in store with their own branded solution, what challenges are they facing to keep the food fresh?
Yeah, and that's actually the biggest challenge across the board. HelloFresh has been in Target for a year. There's, call it 15-ish brands in retail today. We're, call it 8th out of the top 10 in terms of distribution, but number 1 in terms of dollar sales and velocity because we have proprietary packaging that gives 16-day shelf life from data manufacturers. So we use a proprietary solution on our proteins, and then the compartment that houses the produce has a sachet that communicates with the oxidation levels of the produce to extend shelf life. And the issue with HelloFresh, for example, is that they have 6-day shelf life from manufacturer. So the retailers are throwing out 40 to 50% of everything they're taking in, and it's at a price point of $11 to $15 to the retailer. That's just not a game they're willing to play. And other than the Whole Foods Amazon world and plated Albertson Safeway world, we're in discussions with every major retailer because of our shelf life plus quality of product. And it's something that we saw coming, and I've spent a year and a half developing that packaging and have an exclusive patent to, which is a pretty good pitch in the retail world.
Costco is a good customer, I would think. High volume in limited number of stores. Talk about how that came together. Are you guys the only meal kit? I think there's other meal kits, but you guys are one of a few set of meal kits within Costco at this point, right?
There's another brand out of Southern California called True Chef that's it was in the Pacific Northwest, is no longer in the Pacific Northwest. They're a good partner of ours. We're 2 servings for $14.99. It's a really good value. You get a lot of food for $15, and they're doing a really nice job merchandising it with us.
Is it a limited rollout now, or are you?
Yeah, limited rollout. Just Texas today. Southern California this month, Northern California this month, Pacific Northwest next month.
Okay.
Rolling out.
So I could get it next month in Seattle.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'll wait.
Again, you kind of have to hit a certain bar in Costco, and we're doing 3-4x that on a weekly basis in a number of the centers down there in Texas. So,
the logical, how far you could take this idea of personalization. I'm intrigued because you guys are working within it, and one of the pitches that I understand from it is, you might be able to do personalization around food based on your preferences as it starts to understand you. I think connecting that into meal kits, then maybe I would just logically jump to the conclusion, maybe I get customized meal kits, so Mike Wolf's meal kit. Are we getting to that point? Are you guys going to help facilitate that?
That's the future, yes. I kind of describe it as the Etsy for food, where today you can go on Chef and buy Mario Batali's meatball recipe, but you might want Mike Wolf's lasagna recipe that you could then upload. It would match back against our inventory, then you become your own seller, similar to the Etsy marketplace. And again, I would say 2 years away, not today, but it's what we're building. The next gen facilities will have those capabilities.
And the IoT component, you guys are probably the first meal kit company that I have seen really embrace, hey, there's connected cooking in the kitchen, there's software-driven cooking in the kitchen. We want to connect into that world and be a meal kit partner for that. Why was Chef attracted to that and has been kind of forward-leaning towards that versus other meal kit companies?
Part of it is our chief legal came from Bosch and had some good contacts in that world that kind of get our foot in the door. But we've, again, been proactive in being at CES and some of these other trade shows where there's certainly no other meal kit companies hanging out. But it's also a capabilities game. Blue Apron has no desire to be at CES because they don't really have a product that can work specifically with the Samsung smart fridge that can look at what's in your fridge and recommend you recipes based on things that are going bad. It's just not something that they're capable of, but we are. So we're one of those where we don't want to play in the really expensive, low margin, one box at a time kind of e-commerce world. We want to get to these partnership plays where it's kind of driving higher volumes that no one else can really do.
Now, any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. So the question was...
grocery already is getting into meal kits, right? There's some acquisitions happening there. So.
Nielsen released a report last week. Retail meal kits last 12 months is about $154 million category out of, call it the $375 billion of whatever produce and something. I forget where it bubbles up to, but so again, teeny tiny fraction, but that's 80% growth year over year. And what I can tell you is everybody's interested. The Kroger's of the world, Kroger has a product called Prep and Paired. It's just not very good. They're not really in the business of product development. Their shelf life is 6 days. Ours is 14 or 16 from data manufacturer. So it's one of those where everyone is interested, and some of them are going to try to do it themselves. They're not going to be able to figure it out. I can tell you how complicated our packaging is, and no one else can use that packaging. And so it's one of those things. People try, they'll fail, and they'll come to us, or they'll just start with us. And yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so it seems like because tying it into the Internet of Things and nutrition with fitness. So has there been people like high-level fitness instructors that says, look, I want to have this plan, and then you're working out with this as well, so it's interacting with nutrition and fitness on your app.
So tying it into fitness planners, and can they create maybe customized meal kits that would be tailored around their... Right.
So the original Chef platform was designed to bring celebrity chefs' recipes to life. We have 80 celebrity chef partners still active on our platform. We then kind of extended that into big CPGs like Campbell's, Kraft, Nestle. We just created a brand new subscription baking box for Nestle called Sweet Bake. You would never know Chef is involved, but we're doing the entire back end for it. We haven't done fitness instructors. It's not to say we wouldn't. It's one of those things, and just learning from the celebrity chefs, this is a volume game, and if you can't drive enough volume, it's tough to justify. And when retail's doing this, and the drug thing could take off, and you have some interesting apps like in it that are closer. If a fitness instructor has 20,000 followers on Instagram, and will they drive enough volume? It's something that's probably in the future, and we could do it now. It just hasn't been one of our 5 kind of core areas of focus today. We're mostly focused on recipe websites, kind of this connected home world, big CPG, celebrity chefs, and potentially this pharmaceutical thing if it works out.
You mentioned big CPG, and the Nestle one I actually did notice because I thought that's interesting. Nestle's going direct. They have the Toll House. They're responsible for the Toll House brand. They didn't sell that off, and they sold off their confectionery, so they still have that. And I asked them about it. I actually asked them about that specific meal kit, and they said it's the first time Nestle's ever gone direct in a direct-to-consumer model with a meal kit or any sort of subscription model ever. So, I mean, we're seeing this embrace of direct-to-consumer. Obviously, part of it is to do with the retail landscape is changing. CPG brands recognize that they need to have these more direct relationships.
Yep.
You guys are trying to facilitate those. Are there other examples beyond Nestle where you guys have done some of these types of subscription direct-to-consumer models?
Yeah, we're working on a product right now called Campbell's Kitchen. That'll be Campbell's kind of subscription meal plan offering in their own packaging. It is a very valid point. I come from the startup venture world where the entire conversation is around taking share from the big guys. The big guys don't communicate with millennials who have the purchasing power now, and now they're buying these smaller brands that are masters of the direct-to-consumer channel. Our kind of pitch to the big guys is that we can give you a direct-to-consumer option. We have built a custom kind of data dashboard for both Nestle and Campbell internally, so they actually know who their consumers are for the first time, and then they can retarget them, market to them, survey to them, whatever they want to do. So it is kind of interesting that we're, again, sort of the only players. They can build their own direct-to-consumer channels, but they just don't resonate with consumers in the same way that our brand does, so it's easier for them to plug into us to do it.
Go ahead.
I think Lantern has like 15 to 20% share. What do you guys estimate your share of the whole meal kit?
So the question is, what do you think the chef percentage share, market share is of the meal kit industry?
The Chef brand, a rounding error, the brands that we touch and fulfill for on the back end, I would guess it's in the low single digits still. Blue Apron, 60%, HelloFresh 40, maybe that's coming together.
Plated's been going down.
Plated's going down. Sunbasket's doing well. Again, I think they're at a $275 million run rate. I'm not at liberty to share our numbers on stage, but we're still small, yeah. Well, again, but we're number 1 in retail, which is a major focus, and that could be a $50 to $100 million business alone this year, so fingers crossed.
Talk about if you look at the conventional usage pattern of a meal kit user, right? I mean, it's pretty well known at this point. There is a bit of a drop off, right? Yeah. And oftentimes it is, I aspire to cook, I get it. I was like, I got the Blue Apron, I got it for a while, and I'm like, this is a lot of work. Yeah. Maybe I just need to do something more, push a button and cook it. So talk about that and how you guys as a company have tried to counter drop off. And do you see the similar sorts of drop offs that Blue Apron has seen?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. But we don't. Again, we're not a subscription offering, so it's looking at repeat purchase, and 44% of consumers reorder, and 68% of those who reorder twice reorder a third time. So people like our product. Part of our whole kind of pitch to investors is that we've spent less than $1 million on marketing in the 4 years of Chef, because our whole game is playing marketing through our partners, and so we don't our customer acquisition cost is in the low teens to high single digits, and it's not really apples to apples. And we find that our consumers are generally buying 2 servings over 4, and it's generally 70-30 women to men. And so ours is kind of much more of a date night or an event type of thing than it is people doing meal prep. And some of these partners that we're working with, we're building the meal plans for. But because ours is so one-off, we had a huge success with our Surf and Turf, Valentine's Day box, for example. We do a lot around food holidays and events. We're not necessarily the option that's going to be, you're ordering us for every day of the week. Candidly, we're not cheaper than Blue Apron's $9.99 a serving. We're closer to 13 to 15 on average, and so we've become more of an event, or if you're hosting a dinner party, for example, we do well with that crowd. And again, we want that to change over time with as volumes go up, but we're less concerned about the chef brand. We're more concerned with building the ecosystem and whoever wants to layer on top of it. So for us, repeat purchase is not the core kind of metric that we're focused on.
I want to ask again, or dive in more about that Vitamix announcement. You guys announced, are you guys doing for Vitamix, these meal kits?
Yes.
So is that like a certain tailor towards like soups, or what? Talk a little bit about that. I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, they're meals and parts of meals that are designed
that could go
to be cooked
in a Vitamix.
Yeah, exactly. They were just demoing a cauliflower fried rice with sauce, and again, if you want protein, that's going to be separate. But yeah, it's mostly soups and sauces and purees and things like that.
Because you guys are connected into some of these appliances, do you guys have? Are you getting interesting data that other meal kit guys wouldn't necessarily have around usage patterns? Can you talk a little bit more about your data sets?
Yes.
And any kind of interesting points you could pull out?
Yeah, interesting specifics. I'd probably get slapped for saying giving any.
I don't want you to get you in trouble.
But because we give consumers choice, the a la carte versus subscription does impact. It's just different when somebody has a slew of choices and they get to pick one, as opposed to this is what you get this week. And if Labor knows if people opt out of certain things, but they're not necessarily getting any information on what people are actually selecting. And so we have that data combined with Smithfield Foods is our largest shareholder, $17 billion global producer of pork. They have a ton of consumer research and insight that they historically, couldn't do that much with. They sell kind of your mass market pork products, and now they're getting to use that in our kits. And they do all of our distribution in the grocery, and having them has helped get us out there quickly. They have a sales team of hundreds of folks that are helping us open doors at the Costco's of the world. I wish I had a better data point for you.
I put you on the spot on the data.
If I come back on that, I'll probably think about it when I walk off the stage.
All right, before we close up shop, do we have any other questions out there? Go ahead. Yeah. So the question is, are people leaning more towards semi-prepped and maybe chopped things, so there's not much work involved? Is that something I noticed when I got that? And not to bring up a competitor, but Amazon had their meal kits, and one of the things I liked about them over Blue Apron is like the potatoes were chopped. Like, this is way less work for me. So is that becoming a thing where consumers want to cook from scratch, but maybe they want a little bit of cheating?
That's local to Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge with wash and cut is just shelf life. Your shelf life becomes a third to a quarter immediately upon cutting something open. It's something we're obviously exploring and we'd love to get into. Our in-store kits have some pre-cooked stuff. Most of our in-store kits are under 15 minutes total prep time, which people love. And part of that, pre-cooking the pasta a little bit. Our chicken is sous vide and things like that. Yes, it's certainly something we're looking at. But when we're the only platform that ships nationally in 2 days or less, there's positives and negatives to that. But cutting, if we were to wash and cut everything, it just wouldn't work from a shelf life perspective until we're working on another facility in the Midwest right now. Right now we ship everything from Brooklyn and LA, and then our retail, we have a co-packer in Illinois, but it's something we're thinking about for sure, yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Let's give Steve a big round of applause. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.